Visit us on onestepenglish.com. Listening. Directions in listening section, you will hear monologues, dialogues, and academic talks.
Piano lessons.
It's time for you to go over to Mrs. Fry's apartment now, said Nora's father. How do you feel about taking your first piano lesson? I'm not sure, said Nora. Nora walked to Mrs. Fry's apartment. Then she knocked on the door. Mrs. Fry smiled at Nora and let her in. Nora saw the piano in the corner of the room. It looked huge. Don't be scared, Mrs. Fry said. Playing the piano is like tickling your toes. It's fun. Nora sat on the piano bench while Mrs. Fry got out some music. Nora looked at the white and black keys. Then she touched one of them. It made a pretty sound. Suddenly she didn't feel scared anymore.
Number 1. Which of these things happened first?
Letter A. Nora walked to Mrs. Fry's apartment. Letter B. Nora had her first piano lesson. Letter C. Mrs. Fry smiled at Nora.
The correct answer is letter A. Nora walked to Mrs. Fry's apartment.
Number 2. What did Nora do while Mrs. Fry got out some music?
Letter A. She saw the piano in the corner of the room. Letter B. She sat on the piano bench. Letter C. She talked to Mrs. Fry.
The correct answer is letter B. She sat on the piano bench.
Number 3. Which of these is a fact?
Letter A. Nora didn't want to learn to play the piano. Letter B. Nora wanted to be a professional pianist. Letter C. Nora was nervous about her first piano lesson.
The correct answer is letter C. Nora was nervous about her first piano lesson.
Reading.
In this section, you will be required to read 2 passages on varying topics. After each passage, you will answer questions to test your ability to understand vocabulary, writer's point of view, factual information and sentence structures.
Reading number 1. Lessons you can learn by playing sports. Source: onlinesportmanagement.cu.edu.
Number 1. According to the passage, what can we learn from getting a sport?
Letter A. Being a good sport, taking risks, having superb patience. Letter B. Muscle strength, multiple skills, high academic grades. Letter C. Discernment, negotiating skills, exposure to opportunities.
The correct answer is letter A. Being a good sport, taking risks, having superb patience.
Number 2. Why is being into sports a good training for risk-taking?
Letter A. Training doesn't just improve the mechanics of your free throw or your putt but your real life. Letter B. Any sport requires significant sacrifices of time and energy. Letter C. Repeated exposure to challenging opportunities is the best training for developing a sense of logical decision-making.
The correct answer is letter C. Repeated exposure to challenging opportunities is the best training for developing a sense of logical decision-making.
Number 3. The author implies that.
Letter A. Basketball is the best sport. Letter B. There is a connection between real-life lessons and sports. Letter C. One should choose wisely the sport that will teach life skills.
The correct answer is letter B. There is a connection between real-life lessons and sports. Reading number 2. The history of architecture through the eyes of Greek and Roman civilization. Source: www.widewalls.ch.
Number 1. What makes the Greek architecture unique?
Letter A. There were plenty of stones in their designs. Letter B. There were fewer columns used in the temples. Letter C. It placed an emphasis on the civic life.
The correct answer is letter C. It placed an emphasis on the civic life.
Number 2. What was the greatest contribution of the Roman architecture?
Letter A. The arch that led to the different types of arcades, helping the Romans make their aqueducts and triumphal gates. Letter B. The domes, an early example of which we can see as part of the Pantheon. Letter C. The temples with massive stone walls.
The correct answer is letter A. The arch that led to the different types of arcades, helping the Romans make their aqueducts and triumphal gates.
Number 3. Why is car travel safer than air travel?
Letter A. The Romans introduced quite a few immense innovations in its architecture. Letter B. The Romans popularized the use of columns and canopies. Letter C. After the Romans had conquered the Greek territories, they virtually took over and strongly influenced most of the Western architecture over the next centuries.
The correct answer is letter C. After the Romans had conquered the Greek territories, they virtually took over and strongly influenced most of the Western architecture over the next centuries.
You've reached the mid part of the video. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe.
VOCAB. In this section, you will learn vocabulary words with its meanings and examples. In the test, there are 5 questions and you have 10 seconds to answer each question.
Confine. A verb. Keep or restrict someone or something within certain limits of space, scope, quantity, or time.
Example. Marvin did not, however, confine his energies to traveling.
Discern. A verb. Perceive or recognize something.
Example. The ambassador could not discern the difference between the two policies.
Architecture. A noun. The style in which a building is designed and constructed, especially with regard to a specific period, place, or culture.
Example. Mr. Clabb's house is inspired by the Victorian architecture.
Ritual. A noun. A religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order.
Example. Martha loves the high church ritual.
Incapable. An adjective. Unable to do or achieve something.
Example. When Teddy was randomly called to talk in public, he blushed and was incapable of speech.
Quiz time.
Number 1. Firefighters managed the fire to go beyond our house. A verb. Keep or restrict someone or something within certain limits of space, scope, quantity, or time.
Letter A. Confine. Letter B. Discern. Letter C. Architecture. Letter D. Ritual. And letter E. Incapable.
The correct answer is letter A. Firefighters managed to confine the fire to go beyond our house.
Number 2. It's not easy to faces when you have poor eyesight. A verb. Perceive or recognize something.
Letter A. Confine. Letter B. Discern. Letter C. Architecture. Letter D. Ritual. And letter E. Incapable.
The correct answer is letter B. It's not easy to discern faces when you have poor eyesight.
Number 3. Some people find modern not very pleasing to the eye. A noun. The style in which a building is designed and constructed, especially with regard to a specific period, place, or culture.
Letter A. Confine. Letter B. Discern. Letter C. Architecture. Letter D. ritual. And letter E. Incapable.
The correct answer is letter C. Some people find modern architecture not very pleasing to the eye.
Number 1. The doctor will. The exact cause of my dog's illness. A verb. Identify the nature of an illness or other problem by examination of the symptoms.
Letter A. Confine. Letter B. Discern. Letter C. Architecture. Letter D. Ritual. And letter E. Incapable.
The correct answer is letter D. We saw a bird in the zoo that was performing a complex mating ritual.
Number 5. My cousin got injured and he's of walking. An adjective. Unable to do or achieve something.
Letter A. Confine. Letter B. Discern. Letter C. Architecture. Letter D. Ritual. And letter E. Incapable.
The correct answer is letter E. My cousin got injured and he's incapable of walking.
Speaking section.
The impact of COVID-19 to humans in the world.
The COVID-19 pandemic has led to a devastating loss of human life worldwide and presents an unprecedented challenge to public health, food systems, and the world of work. The economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic is dramatic. Millions of people are in huge danger of falling into extreme poverty. Millions of enterprises face an existential threat. Nearly half of the world's 3.3 billion global workforce is at risk of losing their livelihoods. Informal economy workers are particularly vulnerable because the majority lack social protection and access to quality health care and have lost access to productive assets. For most, no income means no food, or, at best, less food and less nutritious food. Also, in the COVID-19 crisis, food security and public health are major problems. With low and irregular incomes and a lack of social support, people spurred to continue working, often in unsafe conditions, thus exposing themselves and their families to additional risks. We must rethink the future of our environment and tackle climate change and environmental degradation with ambition and urgency. Only then can we protect the health, livelihoods, food security, and nutrition of all people, and ensure that our new normal is a better one. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Visit us on onestepenglish.com.